Hi everyone, this is Rochelle Rizzi with Vrai, and I'm here today with one of my longtime friends and somebody I respect so much, Anese Cavanaugh. Anese is an author of 2 books that I love so dearly, and she has actually a 3rd one that, Anese, I'll let you talk more about that, and the poem that you wrote, and she's just so incredibly insightful and creative. She is also the founder of the IEP Method, which stands for Intentional Energetic Presence. I came up with another acronym that I'll share. It was important, energetic principles or something in my mind, because I was thinking about how I could show up in life right now with all that I have going on with parenting and running a business and all of that. So I will let Anese take it from here. I'm just like bubbling over with excitement for you to be here with me today. Thank you, Anese.
Thank you so much for having me do this with you. It's so much fun for me to see where you've brought your life and this work and this Docuseries, and it's so much fun for me to see it over the last couple of years, because I think you and I were talking before and we haven't seen each other. I guess we did see each other at Small Giants a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
but you were actually out here right when we were launching Contagious Culture.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, as we said, life.
Life. 5 years of a lot of life.
A lot of life.
Yeah. And, I think it's important, as I talk to all of my fellow entrepreneurs on the Docuseries, to talk a little bit about your true north. That's what Vrai Nor means. It's the true north. I really want to dive into that a little bit, of what inspires you to do the work that you do.
Okay, so the work, as you mentioned, is IEP, so intentional energetic presence, which also, if you take those, so intentional energetic presence is about being intentional about the energetic presence we bring to our life, and we bring to our conversations, we bring to our children, we bring to our partners, to our staff, to our, like, to anything, to doing the dishes, to paying taxes, to doing the most tedious stuff. It's being really intentional and conscious about what is the energy I'm bringing, and is the energy I'm bringing, is it helping me create the result I want? Is it helping me create the experience I want? Is it helping me create the impact I want to have on this other human being? And so I believe, and my life's journey has shown me that we have a lot of control over that. We don't have any control over anything outside of ourselves, anybody, any situation, anybody else's reaction. We have zero control, as much as I would love to someday control. Like, it's never going to happen. So what I've learned is that we can only control ourselves. And in that, I actually find a lot of peace, because if I can only control myself, and if I can only be responsible for the energy I bring to things, then I have a better chance at feeling better, creating a better experience, and then being more effective in actually meeting people where they're at and inspiring them to come to a higher vibration, or to show up in a different way, or whatever it might be. So your intentional energetic presence is about bringing that. And then you can also separate those 3 things out and look at your intentions, which is what you want to have happen, your energy, which is your literal energy and stamina and how you feel in order to make those things happen. And then your presence, which is how are you showing up in it, and how present are you, and what energy are you actually bringing to the table. And so when we put those things together, it gives us a new set of leadership tools and capabilities to actually start to influence others, influence our work, influence our companies more effectively, without totally burning ourselves out, which is a big deal.
Right. And actually, I misspoke before when I was thinking of my own acronym. It was this morning, just sipping coffee. I'm like, it's important endurance principles. That's so in line with what IEP is, because right now, with what we are all facing, and I've been pretty open that I'm a single mom of 4 kids. I run my own business. I'm creating new things every day. I'm showing up for my clients and my partner and my children. And wow, like, you have to, where do you set the boundaries and how do you set them? And how do you have the endurance to show up with the proper energy? Because everybody and everything needs a different vibration or a different, um, authentic energy. You want to be authentic in who you are. It needs a different, maybe level of energy or a different kind of energy. How are you coaching people through this right now?
It's a great question. So I will also join you in the ranks of being a single mom, and my kids are older than yours. Mine are 15 and almost 20.
Uh,
I, I realized that this morning, like I just realized that he'll be 20 in September, which to me is crazy. I've been a mom for 20 years, so I just want to just join you there. And also running the business and life. And we're in a really unique period of time right now with COVID. Like none of us have ever gone through a pandemic like this before or at all, unless we're over 100 years old. And so I think, how am I coaching people in this right now? Here's what I'll share. I can share how I'm working with myself, and I'll share basically how that then ripples out to helping other people do it. And the first thing I can say, and you know this, is that this work is so personal to the individual. So the IEP method, there's an entire methodology around that body of work that's been built over basically the last 20 years. And the IEP method is something that's got the framework to support people in really looking at, how do I reboot my presence? How do I reboot my energy authentically, not like a robot? How do I honestly take care of myself so I can reboot? The second part of the methodology is really looking at how do I create intentional impact? And there's a framework that we can actually do to create the intentional impact. You've seen that sheet, I think. Let's see.
yeah.
The sheet. Yeah, you know the sheet, the 5-step sheet.
Mm-hmm.
There's a framework that people can actually thought. And then there's the bigger one, which really ties into what you're asking, which is how do I build a really strong energetic field and foundation? And that energetic field and foundation is basically my ability to strengthen my resiliency and to strengthen my ability to stay in my space without getting hooked into all the drama or trauma or chaos or negative energy or whatever might be going on around me. And so that energetic field boils down to, how am I taking care of myself? My self-care is huge. My ability to just build my relationship and be in partnership with myself. This is a big one. We could talk more about that if you want. I'm inviting people to really look at doing a core values assessment and really looking inside at, okay, what are your core values? At the end of the day, what is the most important things that are it's your core value system, your code of ethics, how you want to show up in the world, who you want to become, how you want to behave. And when we get clear on those, and when we're in alignment with them and honoring our core values, then it allows us to show up in a way that's a lot more congruent, a lot more centered. And then that in itself is a leadership skill that then gets received by other people in a way that they can trust us more because we're trusting ourselves. So to move through this period of time, especially if you're in a leadership position, and by the way, I think that everyone's in a leadership position because we're all leading our lives, but especially if you're leading people or your kids or anybody, during this time, to me, the most important things are taking really good care of yourself, being incredibly congruent and in clean agreement with yourself. So clean partnership, clean, which means you're honoring your core values and at least aware of them. And then doing everything you can to help things go better. So how, I take care of myself, I'm in alignment with my values. If I'm not in alignment with my values, then at least I'm conscious of it. And I'm going, okay, I'm not in alignment here. What do I want to do about it? And I'm in authorship versus being victim to it, right? So, all right, I'm not in alignment with my values. That's clean because at least I'm owning it. And then the other piece is, as I continue to build up my field, how do I now use my energy and my presence and my intentions for good in the world? So what's the little thing I can do to be contributing to what I'm seeing happening in chaos and pain outside of myself and helping my employees or contributing to whatever cause is happening in the world right now that I really care about. So it's take care of yourself and then use that for good.
That's amazing. And with the core values, it's interesting as entrepreneurs, which is most of the people in this audience are entrepreneurs. I hope that we can touch other people and other leaders. And as you said, we all are. We're all leading someone or something, definitely ourselves. We often think about the core values of the business, and
Mhm.
we forget that they should be derived by the owner. You know, this our businesses are our biggest asset. It's an
Mhm.
investment. It is not who we are. It is not us. It is a part of us. It is
Mhm.
something we've created. We have to show up for our business as if it's a person and
Mhm.
it's an entity, like an ant hill, right? Has all these little worker ants in there. You step on the ant hill, your your whole colony is gone. You've got to take care of your business.
Yeah.
But if you're not taking care of you and you don't know what your core values are, you how can you be authentic to your business's core values or the culture that you're trying to grow? And you know, when you talk about energy, which is of course everything that you're doing, I think we have an obvious word in the title here, contagious
Mhm.
you, contagious. How perfect right now that you have these books out. People forget that whether you have positive energy or negative energy, you are contagious.
Yeah.
And how you show up has such a ripple effect. And you can see that it's the energy, what you put out, you get back.
Mhm.
You know, who wants to show up and be the energy vampire? I mean, I just love all of this. So talk more about like examples of I don't know what you've been through with all of this, because I know you too have been impacted with COVID.
No, it is. I have been, and I am, as are all of us. Okay, so a couple of things. So much in what you just said. All right, one, I just want to go back to real quick values and congruency. So one thing I just want to, it's coming up for me a couple of times. So I just want to offer it for anybody that needs to hear this right now. When people come to me to do this work, a lot of times they're coming because they want to build trust and credibility with their team, or they want their company to do better, or they want their culture to be better, or whatever it is. And the quickest way to make that happen sustainably and genuinely is to check yourself first, to check ourselves first, and to look at if we're in alignment and being congruent with ourselves. Because what I find is a lot of times that people think that culture is happening outside of themselves, which sure, of course, yes, culture is happening everywhere where we're seeing it. And we actually are, what I've found in doing this work for the last 20 years is it's actually, culture is a result of every single one of us and how we're showing up in it. So I'm the culture. People think that, well, the culture is happening out there. Well, as soon as I put one finger out, I've got three fingers pointing back at me. Actually, culture is happening in here. So if I am wanting more trust and credibility, if I'm wanting a better culture, if I'm wanting people to listen more, if I'm wanting a different result, I get to look at, well, how am I doing that with myself? And how am I taking care of myself so that I can be so clean here that that's what I actually put out. And then that is what helps create the culture. So I just want to offer that because that's a big thing that I'm hearing right now is like people are like, okay, well, gosh, there's a lot of fear right now and there's a lot of stuff happening and I don't know how to get to all of it. And it's daunting and it's just overwhelming. And at the end of the day, like then we get paralyzed because we don't know how to help it. Well, the best way to help it is to take good care of yourself and be the best instrument of change. So then you can be clear about how you want to contribute and put that energy out there authentically. And then we start to create a different kind of culture. And every little thing counts. So I just want to offer that. And then the other thing is, it's funny, so right, Contagious Culture was written in 2015. Okay, this is all about culture, organization, team. And the big surprise of this book was people were like, oh, good, I'm going to get a book called Contagious Culture because it's safe and I'm going to talk about the culture. I'm going to fix the culture. And you get in the book and it's like, oh, hi, you're the culture, right? Remember that? It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay, first, before we work on your culture, we're going to work on you. And that was the big surprise in this book. And I think one of the reasons why this book still, to me, it's a little bit timeless because culture is always happening. But that was Contagious Culture. Then Contagious You came in 2019. And the reason why this one showed up was because I kept still getting people coming to me after Contagious Culture and saying, okay, this is great. I know I'm the culture. That's fine. I've got Anese. My team really needs it, but I've got it. And they didn't have it. And then the team would be coming to me and saying, we really wish that person would get the message here because actually that person is who we keep quitting. Like that person is who we're not trusting. We're working on the culture, but they're not playing. And so Contagious You is like this extra book around, all right, now, you know, you really are the culture. We really are the culture. So let's dig in even deeper, own it. And then, oh, by the way, if you're that guy, which I always call that guy George or Georgette or G, if you're that guy who's still not hearing this and doesn't think this applies to you, here are some ways to start looking at it differently. So there was that. And then the other book that you mentioned is behind me. It's The Leader You Will Be with the hands. And that was the poem that you've seen me do. And I just, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I think it's interesting that I wrote Contagious Culture, Contagious You, and The Leader You Will Be right before a pandemic hit.
Right.
Because now we're in the middle of a pandemic. And I gotta say, like the first month of the pandemic, book sales went like this. People were like, I'm not touching a book that says I'm contagious on it, you know? And now it's starting to like build up again. But our contagiousness is more important now than it has ever been. We've always been contagious physically, energetically, all of it. We're now in the pain of physical contagiousness and what the cost of that is. But even more so, we're in the pain or the opportunity of our energetic and emotional contagiousness and what we can now create as business leaders today. And for me, that makes me grateful for this moment in time, because I think there's a huge opportunity for us to really look at, well, how do I want to be contagious? How do I want to lead through this pandemic? What is the change I want to create now? We have a little bit of a reset button, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
So
well, you know, when I read the book and having been through what I've been through with breaking down my businesses after building that for 12 years, going through a divorce, having to rebuild my life, going to work for the employer that I had for 4 years before spinning back out on my own. When I was there, everybody kept saying, how are you? How are you really? And I'm like, you know, I'm good. I'm not great. I'm good. I'm appreciating the pause. And I think that creativity always comes in the darkness. Like this is our opportunity to really appreciate the pause. And that was somewhere in your book. And there was another character that you mentioned. Was it Mary?
Mary, yeah.
And
or Marvin, to be fair, or M.
Or Marvin. But it was this whole list of characteristics of who I think I am, and not that I can't sometimes be George, but I'm human. But I tend to be the boy, I'm showing up for my kids. I'm trying to get all my work done. I still don't feel like I'm enough. I feel like I could give more. I'm gonna stay up all night until this is done. I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna get this. I mean, I'm an overachiever is what I am. And I have learned to pace myself, because it is the oxygen mask, right? If you don't put the oxygen mask on first, you can't take care of anybody or anything else. And if I'm not here because, you know, God decides to take me because I've worn myself out, I'm no good. Right. So and that keeps me going. My kids do keep me going. The big picture of life keeps me going. And I love to create and innovate. And this is a perfect time for people to do that. I know you're doing that with your business. So, you know, everything's gone virtual, right?
Yeah. And it has. And I would also say, like, so even if you're not here physically because God takes you early, even if you're here, but you're not here, to me, it's a different outcome. Obviously there's a different kind of impact, but it's a very serious impact. So if we're leading and we're doing what I call spiritual bypasses, where we're not taking care of ourselves, we're not giving ourselves full permission for our emotional authenticity, we're not taking care of our mental health and our physical health, and we're not taking that time to pause, then we're not here. We can't show up as our best for the people. We also don't have the ability to then hold the kind of container and the kind of space that people need us to hold right now. So this is something I want to invite people to really think about. And I've been really looking at this lately. It's like safety right now is really important. So there's physical safety that people are worried about as they're going back to work. And then there's mental safety, emotional safety, and all that. As a leader, it is essential that we're providing an environment, virtually, or if you're in person with your people now, it's essential that we're providing an environment that creates safe space. In order to create safe space, you have to be present. You have to be able to hold compassion and empathy. You have to be able to be curious, and you have to be able to be nourishing in the way that you're leading while still holding accountability. So if you played this back, what I just said, every single thing I just said, you have to do it with yourself first. Mm-hmm. Because if I can't hold safety for myself, if I'm not compassionate, empathetic with myself, if I'm not taking care of myself, if I'm not nourishing myself, there's no way I can do that for everybody else at my best.
Right.
So that's another form of the oxygen mask. It's like, I think people are really starting to see this. I just got invited to do something for a big program where they're looking at leadership self-care now. And I think people are really starting to see like the self-care of a leader. Self-care is a leadership skill. And I think we're going to find through this year and however long we're in this, that it's one of the most important leadership skills that we need to be tapping and also emphasizing and championing for our employees. And self-care, mental health, physical, all that. So, so I hope it's all right. I keep like getting these little nuggets and then I like chime in because something that you say is so rich. I just want to share it and hope it helps. And is it okay the way we're doing this?
Oh yeah, this is like coffee talk. Like,
yes, coffee.
Yeah, let's talk.
Coffee talk. It's coffee and green juice talk in a wine glass. All right. So for me, yeah. So before this happened, last year, the book released in 2019, and I was very clear. I'd had a couple of really, really, really intense years, and I was like traveling like crazy and running around and speaking and teaching and like amazing, tons of people in rooms and lots of hugs and books and all the stuff that I mean, you've known me for years, you know how much joy I get in that. And then I started to realize after I wrote Contagious You, like I really gave myself a year to write that book. It's, as you said, you've read it a couple of times now. It's more intense than Contagious Culture. It's 100 extra pages. Like it was supposed to be shorter. It didn't work that way. Like it just, the information kept coming in. And writing Contagious You actually had such an impact on me personally in the way that I was practicing my own IP, the way that I was looking at purpose and impact. And so in all these different pieces, that when I was done writing Contagious You, I actually no longer wanted to work the way that I used to work anymore. Like it had changed. I had been running, I started this business almost 20 years ago with my little boy in the back of the car and wrote the vision on Post-it notes and like all this stuff. And I've been doing this work for 20 years and building it out. And it was in 2019, I realized, okay, I actually don't want to work like that anymore. I actually want to shift it a little bit. So we started to build more of the work online. And the vision was that for 2021, we would have 50% of our offerings would be online for people. Well, pandemic hit and it was like, okay, you're doing it now. Because when the pandemic hit, any speaking gig that had been booked, a lot of the consulting that had been booked, like a lot of stuff that had been booked, which is my company's revenue, was like gone, and so we had a couple of really like scary months, and just really, I would say scary and also so nourishing, because what it invited me to do is like, I really believe that the greatest gifts that we get don't come without some kind of pain or darkness to get through to them. Like, I think there's some great gifts that come that are just like awesome. And like, I'm so happy that was so easy. And then I think there are some gifts that we get that we only get them if we're willing to stay in the darkness and to stay in the fire and to do the work around it. And so we basically, pandemic really hit like March. We basically, April, May, June, made the business about, all right, things are quiet. I have a very small team. I have a very small team, which they're awesome. And basically what we did was we said, okay, team, everybody go back, do a reset, really look at who you want to be in this work, how you want to serve with this work, what you want your job to be about, where can we be even more efficient with the way we're working. And we're just going to give as much as we can, and we're going to listen. And so we spent those 3 months doing, free book clubs and donation programs and Project Impeccable and all these things. And what we would do is we would listen to what was happening on these programs, and then we would listen to what people needed. And then we would go, all right, we can actually start to morph this into some of our online programming that we weren't going to do until 2021. So very long story short, as of July 1st, we now have got the majority of our programs online. We're going to be launching stuff in August and September with actual like our live events that people used to say you can only do those in person. Yeah, in person's awesome. And we're not doing in person right now. So we've found a way to really make it work where we can be together online and create a really intimate space. And so we're going to be doing that. And then we have a lot of online training programs that we've moved over. So people are now being able to participate in this work that either couldn't afford it before, I just didn't have the bandwidth for it or whatever. And so it's turning this really cool gift, which is a really long way of saying like 3 months of darkness and soul searching. And I had to really look, Rochelle, too. It's like, I mean, do I want to do this work in this way anymore? And does it, I actually had a period of time where I was like, does this work still work? Like in a really dark week, I was like, does this work still work? Or is this work like a luxury right now? Like, okay, bubble up, have great energy. And where I came out of, and I'm really grateful that I sat in that for a while. It wasn't a week, it was longer than a week. But it made me look deeper at some of the things in the work that I take for granted and some of the ways that I've been more effective at helping people integrate this work when they're in a dark place as a company, as an organization, as a culture. It forced me to go a lot deeper so that when I came out of it, it was like, okay, wait, actually, not only does this work, it's actually more important than ever. Whoa, there's a lot of stuff I completely missed that I was taking for granted. How do we make that more conscious and intentional now? And now that's getting put into our stuff. And so I think our intention is to make the pandemic the best thing that ever happened to this business and to the body of work, because it challenges us to stand in a different kind of fire to serve even more effectively. And so my devotion to service and to helping other companies do even more, and the business leaders leading them do it in a way that doesn't burn themselves out, like it's higher than it's ever been. So
right. Yeah. That's all such good stuff. And I will make sure to list your website and all of that in the description of the video. You touched on, do you have a couple more minutes?
Totally.
Okay, you touched on something with, mental health, pacing ourselves and all of that, but I wanted to bring up the term leadership depression because that's in your book. And I shared this when I was interviewed on a podcast not too long ago about my deep dark days where I felt like I lost my identity because I lost my business. We've got people going through some really tough times, especially in, if you even touch the hospitality industry in any way, just as an example, travel, whatever, you touch it in any tier of that, any part of the supply chain, you have been affected. I have lots of friends in the restaurant world, and I know that they're going to have to, I have some people who have to close their doors. You've got to protect your family. You've got to, you want this dream to go on, but you are not your business. And I reached a point of maybe not clinical depression, or maybe it was. I had a therapist. I will be very honest. I had never done that before. I needed to find tools to cope and to communicate better, to, have a third party to talk to. What I learned to do in that too is to listen. So I was able to appreciate the pause because I was getting to know myself by myself without my husband, because that was no longer, without my business and my team, because that was no longer. I was now, who am I, right? I'm a mom. Okay. What kind of mom do I want to be? You get to create it. You get to start over at any moment in time. You choose it right now, 2 minutes from now, tomorrow, but you get to. This is an opportunity. But leadership depression is just huge. And it's not just, it is mental health, but it's also depressing your potential. That's what else I got from that. And to be still and listen. The things are trying to come through to you during this time. And if we don't have a moment to ourselves to be still, nothing can come out. We're not open to receiving anything.
Right. I agree. I totally agree. I think what I have to say about that today, because I know what I wrote in the book, and I still stand behind what I said about leadership depression in the book. And one of the things I was talking about in leadership depression was this feeling of also being isolated, because you're responsible for leading other people, and then you're responsible to either your board of directors or your CEO or or your client or whatever. So you're, as a leader, you're in the middle, and that can feel very alone and isolated. So that's one of the things I was talking about in the book. And I was talking about the chronic, also the chronicness of all the things that lead to burnout. So not taking care of ourselves, not pausing, not being present, not being connected to purpose. So I link those two together. I think the thing that, as we're talking about this today, that really comes up for me is, one, wherever you're at right now, you just said you can change it today, tomorrow, whatever. I really honor that, because they always say, like, it's never too late to change. If you lived here, you'd be home by now, on the billboards when you drive down the thing. I think change has to happen on our personal timeline. And so wherever you're at right now, I think that's sage advice. Like, give yourself full permission to be there and to not try and force it. Because what I notice is people get uncomfortable, and I am seeing this everywhere right now. In fact, we created an entire program around it because of this. So I'm seeing that people get really uncomfortable with where they're at. They've lost their job. They've got to shut doors. They've got to do something. A relationship is ending, whatever is happening. And they're so uncomfortable with it. And they're so uncomfortable with the darkness. So what they start to do is they start to drink or binge TV or get lost in social media or take on something that's going to have them self-medicate and kind of check out of it, so they don't have to deal with it. My invitation to people is, one, to let yourself have full permission to stay with where you're at without trying to dilute it, and to just sit in the discomfort of it. Because if you can sit in the discomfort of it, you actually get to experience it and learn from it more quickly. And you get the wisdom that your highest self has for you. But if you check out and get busy and distract yourself with a bunch of stuff, you're not going to get that wisdom. The other piece of that is to get the support that you need. A therapist, I love it that you got help with it. I have a therapist. I think everybody on the planet should have a therapist. I think that, I don't know why there's still this stigma. I mean, I think it's getting much better, but there's still this stigma around therapy. And it's like, no, if you have a really good therapist who can hold a safe container for you and help you do really good deep work, please, if you can do it, go do it. And if you can't do that, or that doesn't resonate for you, then who is it in your circle that you can trust, that you can talk to and have a really honest conversation that's not going to try and take away your pain or fix it or make it worse, but they can just hold that space. And so, one, give yourself space and grace to be where you're at and to shift on your own timeline. You'll know. If you're present to it, you're going to know when it's time to shift. If you're not present and you're checked out and you're drinking and you're TV every single night and running around, like, not like any of us are really running around anywhere right now. but running around your head. If you're doing that, then it's going to take you longer to get through it. And when you do get through it, by the way, my experience shows that, for myself and for others I've seen this in, if you skip it and you do a spiritual bypass, that pain is going to come back and bite you later down the line. So you might as well just do it now. So be present with yourself, get support you need from a therapist, with people around you. A coach can be really helpful, an advisor. Somatic work. I really got into somatic work this last year with just doing work in the body to heal trauma. And that was incredibly powerful. There's a million different ways to address mental health. There's a million different ways to address healing. So find the one that works for you. And then the other thing is create some kind of a ritual or a practice that starts off your day. And this I cannot speak to strongly enough. I think whether you're in a leadership depression mode, if you're feeling burnt out, or if you're feeling like you're on top of the world, I think that creating space at the beginning of your day that is 100% for you, that is set to be quiet, to pray, to meditate, to journal, to do whatever it is that has you connect with yourself and your inner knowing. Make that time the most precious appointment of your day and stick to it. And what I find is, like, for myself, I will have, when I was going through a lot of hard months, when I was going through that period, which we'll the dark night of the soul, if you want to call it, I was going through that period of time. my morning ritual was like 90 minutes. I was getting up, I was going to bed early, I wasn't doing TV, I was getting up early, and I would meditate, say, pray, journal, do whatever it was I needed to do. And I actually had like a ritual. Like I actually had like, I'm gonna do this, 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 and this. And I would journal like crazy. And then as I started to come out of it and I got more of my own knowingness around it, like now my rituals, it's probably 45 minutes. But the point is, and it changes, because as soon as you start to shift what's working, like as soon as you start to do something regularly, you almost get immune to it, like vitamins if you're taking too many vitamins. And so you have to keep changing up your ritual. And I talk about this in Contagious You. But have an agreement with yourself around that time, and have an agreement with yourself around what you will and won't tolerate from yourself. And so my agreement, and this helps me stay out of any kind of burnout or depression, because I've all of us, by the way, every single person has dealt with these in some way, shape, or form. If you haven't, and you really haven't, I would love to meet you, because I have not met a single human being who has not dealt with this if they were willing to talk about it. So in my experience, a lot of times we're dealing with these things and we don't know that we're dealing with them, and we keep trying to keep up with ourselves. And that's the thing that actually creates even more depression and burnout. So create an agreement with yourself to just be in an honest dialogue, if only with yourself for a while. An agreement with yourself to give yourself the space to heal. An agreement with yourself to be nice to yourself. An agreement with yourself to take care, like whatever that is. So those are a couple things I would say, like, I think of them as breadcrumbs out of depression or burnout. And I would say for the people that are, like, I know there's a lot of people that lost their jobs right now, and there's a lot of people that are suffering in really big ways. I think that for all of us, every single one of us doing whatever we can to contribute to helping shift that in our world right now, even if the littlest things we can do, I think if we keep doing those, and then for people that are going through and are hurting more, maybe right now, to really give yourself the space and to ask for help where you need it. I think these are the things, if we're all leaning in, I think then we come to a different place and we can create a different culture coming out of this pandemic. But every single one of us is going to have to show up to do it, and we can't control anybody else, so we got to start with ourselves, which brings us back to where we started.
It's a perfect circle back. I am just, again, enamored with you. I'm glad that we're friends. I'm so grateful you're in my circle. You and I have a very trusting relationship, and I encourage other people to find their person that they can relate to, that you get, you want to feel the energy more. I don't feel, I just, how do I describe this? I feel like I can show up for you in a very authentic way, and I always end up getting more than I feel like I'm giving. And I hope that you get something from me. But you've got to find your people right now. And while not everybody who's listening to this may be a personal connection of yours or ever be there, I just strongly encourage everybody to go out and get this book. Read Contagious Culture. Contagious You is for everyone, not just for entrepreneurs. Buy it for a friend, buy it for a brother, sister, parent. Everybody benefits from this. And take advantage of the online opportunities that Anese is offering. She and her team have just great, authentic belief in what they're doing and want to help. And they really do show up in service of the world. So thank you, Anese. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you too. I thank you so much for this. I think one other piece, if I can just give it to your people, is if you go to IEP.io, if you just go to that site, and I know you'll put this in a thing, but if anybody's listening to this, if you go to IEP.io, you can download a bunch of tools that we just put on there as a gift. It puts you on my list, so you'll get articles from me and stuff, but really the bigger intention is to get you into the IEP community, and so that you've got these tools like the IEP sheet and different things that will help you right now in navigating this moment in time. And then of course, if you want to do our programs, or you want to do, I'm working with people again, privately coaching, which I haven't been able to do in a long time because I was traveling so much and writing books. And so now pandemic made it available for me to do private work again. So like any way that I can be of service to somebody who's listening to this, that this resonates for, please take advantage of what we're offering here, because like we're going to create the culture together, and I'm excited about it.
Great. Well, thank you, Anese.